and Ridge Runner Nation. Welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. Tonight we are joined by someone who recently finished running across the state of Ohio, completing 11 ultras in 11 days. This challenge was a part of her Run for Water challenge, which is currently raising money for everyone to have equal access to clean, safe water. To date, 25,000 people have gained access to clean water through her adventures. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Katie Spotz, how are you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It kind of feels like when you're a kid and you have to go back to school and it's like, wait, the fun is over, the adventure's over. And I've been like keeping in touch with the crew and everyone's on the same page where we're like, oh, we miss it. We want to go back to the trail. And I think that's to be expected, but physically, I'm definitely recovering. Mentally, I'm still like, I want to be running. So I think, yeah, every time I've gone on a big adventure, there's definitely a transition period.
That makes sense. And, knowing you, I'm sure you already have your next big adventure lined up in some capacity. So we'll dive into that maybe a little bit later. But and joining me tonight is our favorite host, JD3. What's going on, man?
Not too much. I'm doing pretty well. Excited. Long day at work, and I'm excited to sit down here and talk to Katie about this run across Ohio, and all the stuff that she's doing with that and the great benefits towards other people. So I'm excited.
It's going to be a super awesome episode. Before we dive too deep into things, we do want to remind everyone that if you have any questions for Katie, drop those in the chat. This is going to be such an epic adventure. There's going to be so many twists and turns of this story over the 11 days that I'm sure. But if you have any questions, drop those in there. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible throughout this hour or so that we have with Katie. Let's just start off at the beginning, Katie. I want to know, when was the first time that you decided, okay, I want to run across the state of Ohio? For a little back context, you've done a couple other states previously. Ohio is your home state. Why did you choose the other ones first? What was it like kind of coming back to Ohio?
Yeah, so I mean, I have logged a lot of miles training in Ohio and being born and raised in the Cleveland area. And I think, the ideas would come doing training for like Ironmans and just constantly being and wanting to explore new places. And so I've gone on a lot of adventures, like beyond Ohio and even as far as like New Zealand and Australia. And I always had this sense of why don't I just do one from home? There's so many places right in our backyards. And, it's often the tourists that see our own cities more than we do. And I just love the idea of being an explorer in your backyard. And so I wanted to do that run 2 years ago, but with COVID, I did change. So the original plan was to do it last summer, but with COVID, I did change to do it in Maine. So Maine was different in that it was like 138 miles in one shot, and Ohio was over the course of 11 days. And yeah, I love seeing new things. And it was like a record, and like the previous holder ended up doing it on a 400-meter track, and I just can't imagine how boring that would be in comparison to constantly being engaged by what am I going to see next, who am I going to meet next, what does the trail have to offer. And so I love exploration. And I think it's a really cool thing that Ohio happens to have a trail, the Ohio to Erie Trail, that goes 326 miles across the state. So definitely all about the adventure, and then also doing it as a fundraiser for clean water. So
Yeah, and I would have to agree. Us being us, especially trail runners, and this being a trail running and ultra running show, like being out on the trails is definitely the way to go versus being on a track. So that's pretty exciting. Um,
yeah.
we got our first question already in the chat from Rob Buckeye Powell. It says, "How do you train for something like this?" And congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I've been, I feel like I will say you've been training for things your whole life. Like everything is preparing you for what's next. However, I did not train. And I know that sounds like wild, and I actually am recovered more from this than from vigorously training for 6 months for the run across Maine, but I thought I could do the splits, and it turns out I cannot. And instead, I strained my hamstring. And so the best thing I could do for training was not run at all. So, yeah, some of my friends were like, wow, you really haven't been training for real, when they see like on Strava that I haven't been running. And so, yeah, I didn't train for this one, and it was like a huge leap of faith. And so, yeah, I mean, even when I wasn't running, it was all about recovering from running. But if I, it's such a big challenge that I don't even know how I would. But yeah, it wasn't the plan to not run before it really, but that's just how the chips fell for this one.
So kind of with all of that being said, then how did you mentally prepare going into this? I mean, knowing that previously you were a little undertrained from your previous adventures, and kind of how did that mental preparation going into that yield to such big success in this journey?
Well, I mean, there is a saying that like no one starts a race being like um you're better off being undertrained than overtrained. And like the people who aren't there are the ones who overtrained and got injured. And so I tend to feel like a lot of the endurance stuff, it becomes like injury prevention and making sure that you have like the basic mechanics down right. But then after that, because you're staying aerobic and you know that no matter how much you train, it probably still will hurt. And your body can adapt with time eventually. So, I mean, it was exciting for me because it was just like, who knows? But yeah, it was definitely nerve wracking. And I think, I think it was to my benefit. One, I wasn't so burnt out that I was like, oh, I don't even want to run anymore. And that could happen if you're just training. By the time the event actually comes, you're like, I'm so sick of running that I don't even want to do it. So I definitely think it helped because I was fresh mentally. And then I think it helped because it made me more cautious than I might have been otherwise. Like, maybe I would have pushed a faster pace. Maybe I would have, not have been as careful with recovery. So I think it was a good warning to me that, like, yes, bodies do break down, and yes, you have to take care of it, and yes, you just have to be careful. So.
That's always a refreshing answer to hear, I think, as ultra runners, because a lot of us, we just want to push all the time. And, that's not always the answer or the smart thing to do. So I think that's a answer that hopefully a lot of people resonate with. I know I do personally, which is awesome. Kind of one thing that I want to talk about now is, before we dive into the actual running part across Ohio, there's a lot of preparation that I'm sure goes into this. What did that look like? What tips do you have someone who's possibly looking to do something like this? And then what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, so that is one thing that I actually do really enjoy is like the planning aspect of it. And so you know, yeah, like I kind of broke it down to like the travel plan and the fueling plan and some of like the target deadlines and logistics and making sure that sponsors felt like they were being highlighted throughout it. And so I always say, like, give yourself time for things because there's always something that comes up or changes. And then what I found to be really encouraging is one of my friends happens to be like the crew mom of running is what she's been called by some. So I think it's always great to have another set of eyes look over things. And she gave me some pointers, like, especially with my nutrition plan that I haven't incorporated before, like incorporating turmeric and cherry juice and different things to help with the inflammation. And I found that to be really helpful just because I couldn't really afford to be sore the next day. I mean, I was, but like it anything I could do to minimize the soreness for the next day. So I always encourage others just to get others in their corner that could serve as like a mentor or a guide or a sounding board. But um, yeah, I mean, looking back, I guess it was a lot, but it was a lot. It was so worth it. Like, just one of the other things that, I mean, for my journey, it was originally my friend following in her van, and we were going to sleep in her van. And I was just like, my body's already suffering. I'm not going to make it that harder. But one of the things we did is we did get Airbnbs. And I think that helped a lot, just to, have easy access to cooking and easy access to laundry. And we didn't want to be changing houses every single night. So one of the other things that we did is just have like a home base for 3 or 4 nights and then move. And so we ended up driving more, but there were a lot of like logistics because one, it was not just a run, it was a charity fundraiser. So there were different charity events happening on like in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. And then there was also a filming component. And so that's something I'm really excited about because I've never really had a chance to share with video anything that I've done. And then it was like a Guinness thing. So there were witnesses that were needed. So there were definitely a lot of logistics, but I definitely couldn't have done it if I didn't have other people helping make all those pieces and parts possible. And yeah, just kind of like being patient when things go wrong, because of course we got lost and things quote unquote went wrong. But that's what's fun about adventure, is that you get the opportunity to problem solve.
Like everyone needs one of those trail moms you were talking about.
Yeah, I think I got a double dose though. Like, I was looking back at pictures and one of them today, I was like, Lori, you're an angel. And it was a picture of me um, because it was like very humid. So I kept dumping water on my head. And the joke was like, am I drinking more water or like using more water and ice to cool off? But one of the pictures was me using, Lori, can I use your shirt? Because my glasses were all fogged up and yeah, you can't really use the wicking type of clothes, and all my clothes were wet. So yeah, having people around you that will be like, yeah, you're fine, like you do you.
With all this logistic planning, Eric Anderson in chat wants to know, why did you pick June versus a cooler month of the year?
So yeah, two regrets. One, do it in the fall. Two, do it on an actual trail, like not concrete. And there were only like 10% that was like crushed gravel, but because it was based on the filmmaker's schedule. And I mean, I was hopeful that it would be cool the whole time. Obviously, it wasn't, but I have done some really hot Ironmans, and they kind of left me feeling a little defeated by it because I was racing in heat. But after this, I don't know. I have the Garmin Enduro, and it tells me when I'm like heat adjusted and heat acclimatized. And like by day 7 and 8, it did reach 100 with the heat index, but it really, because I was going at an aerobic pace, I felt like I was redeemed in that way from being able to be adjusted to the heat, because it didn't really bother me at all. Um, it was kind of like, oh, no need for a warm up. I'm all warmed up. Like, it, sometimes cold weather running, you could get really stiff, and um, yeah, and I would just take ice baths every night, so that would really help reset me. And So yeah, it was definitely hot. One of the days it was so hot, and it was the hottest day, and there were some parts that were on the main roads instead of like being tucked in the trail and, beneath between the trees, and the tarmac and the was so hot on the road that like tar was melting into my shoes, and I was at first I thought I stepped in like horse poop because there were so many buggies and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I've heard of like bad water about how you can fry an egg and do all these, and like you have to walk on the white line because there's less melting, and that I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting that like that can happen.
A whole different perspective. Like a lot of people don't like to experience that, on their regular runs or, just even, running across Ohio. It's absolutely incredible. I want to know, let's take us through the starting line. You press your watch, you get the GPS going. What was that moment like for you? And just kind of walk us through that first day.
I mean, I kept saying it. I said it on day one. I said it till the end, and it was just like, I can't believe we convinced people this would be a good idea because it was just like, Lori never really crewed anything like on that level. I've never done a running event, multi-day running day. Like I've done multi-day cycling, it was like supported. And we've all never done anything quite like this. And even on day one, it was leading a group run in a city that I didn't even really even know. And so, I mean, they were very gracious and being like, oh yeah, we know we can help you out. And they were just pumped to be like running part of it. But I think, yeah, the first day was super hot. So it definitely felt like I was thrown into the fire literally just to have that shock. But it also made, day 2 and 3, like you appreciate the cooler days. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is equivalent to like kids and their excitement for Christmas morning. Like that's how I feel about ultra running, that um so much of our life can be calculated, and sometimes it's nice to kind of, even though I wasn't trained and even though we didn't really know what we were doing, it made it all that much more exciting because when do you get an opportunity just to kind of um, have that chance. So I know we were all very lucky to be in that position, and I mean, we were all working really hard every day, and but mainly it was just kind of like, I can't believe this is really happening. And then day 2 and 3, it was like, um, because I have done Ironmans, I think that helped me understand what like the feeling of running on like bricks. Like that's what they call when you do a cycling, workout and then you follow it by running. They call those bricks because your legs feel like bricks. And day 2 and 3, I was just like, will it ever end? Will it ever go away? Will it ever get better? And like I definitely enjoyed it more if I wasn't watching my watch, because there were certain days where I just had to go by feel and just focus on making sure I was fueling and doing the best I could in the body that was, going through a lot. But
So on that first day, how did the charity kind of events work? Were there like a lot of like big, like you said, there was a group run, but was there like a staged event at the beginning that you kind of had a discussion and did something and raised some money at that moment, or and went on, or was there anything on the second and third days, or was it just when you hit the big cities?
so in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, there was an invite for runners to come join for the first 5K. And then the charity, they're based out in Minnesota, but they were able to come out in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. And they had like a table with information and coffee and bagels. So it wasn't like a formal presentation. It was more like a casual meet and greet. And then aside from that, We did start every morning at 8 and end around 2 or 3. We did do the 8 o'clock start just because we needed like a witness to be like, yes, this happened, and yes, she finished. And then there was like some media, so that kind of started to, trickle as the journey. So there was sometimes like, some kind of media in the morning if there was interest in a lot of the local communities. Like, we're kind of starved for good news, and so a lot of smaller towns were really excited when it went through, and so that was really cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, the starved for good news thing is I think very true right now, and to see someone doing something that's helping others and being exciting. And did you get people to just come out on their who came out and just waved and said hi, like random spots and stuff like that?
Yeah, like especially in Columbus, there were kids with signs and like,
It's
I don't
awesome.
know, it was just so cool. Definitely closer to Cleveland, there were a lot more signs, and at the halfway point, um, there were like, because during I rode across the Atlantic Ocean, and on like on one of the milestones, I had a pod of dolphins cheer me on. So like there were these big inflatable 4 feet dolphins in the trees, and so Scott, the film guy, on his e-bike has all of the like tarped and bungee cords all on these inflatable dolphins, and so those were our like mascots, and so they joined us, and um yeah, I was very concerned about my dolphins. They like, sometimes I would call and be like, wait, where's the dolphin? But yeah, those were our good luck cheerleaders too, so that was fun.
What were those middle days like? Obviously, in the beginning, there's such a big excitement going into this event. At the end, you're excited to be done. But what was the middle days like? What was the grind of those miles like? And how did you kind of get through those miles?
So I did say multiple times like, wow, it just keeps getting better, and I was expecting, so like the halfway was around a little bit past Columbus, and um I don't know, I think I might have enjoyed it more as I went, because every day gained a little bit more confidence, and kind of like understanding, like some days certain foods I could eat and certain foods I couldn't. Some, like day 2 and 3, I was so on adrenaline that I'd wake up and be like, I should be running, and like I was just, yeah, I was very amped. But by day 5 and 6, it became more like a habit, and so I never really needed to get pumped or motivated. It was just kind of like what we did. And I think one of my best days was actually around day like 7, where I mean, there's like a corny quote that's like, your run begins when you when you don't realize you're running. And I can say that flow state is real. And one of the days I was in particular around day 7 or 8, I was definitely like, I don't even care how far it is. I could go forever. This is so fun. And like the miles just go by and you don't care. And but for the days when it wasn't like that, I was definitely listening to 90s music and just like having as much fun and singing out loud. And if it was too hot, I couldn't sing just because my mouth would get too dry. And some days it was so hot that I tried to breathe through my nose the whole time, just to like, I don't know, keep my mouth from being so dry. But yeah, music helped, and just singing music also helped. Um, and then just, yeah, I mean, one of my goals for this was also to like love and still love running, and I'm really happy, and to be friends with the crew. I mean, like, I think that's, I mean, I've heard it happen, like, because you're just under such an enormous amount of pressure and stress that it doesn't always bring out the best. And I've heard of that happening where people are like not so nice and like bossy pants. And so I'm really happy that we're still friends and even better friends than when we started. So um, yeah, surrounding myself with people that are positive, it was something that I know helped me on the journey.
Awesome. Jessica Kopowitz just jumped in the chat room, said, "What an amazing accomplishment." She said, "Congrats and thank you for running for such an important purpose."
Oh,
Um, and then as don't want to assume here, but I'm gonna say that you still love running.
I love running.
Okay, good.
I'm not gonna run. I love running too much to just like hop back in there and run because I know my body needs recovery, even if I don't think it does. So yeah, definitely still love running.
And then got another question from Eric Anderson in the chat. Says, "Seems like you really enjoy the planning and the self-sufficient adventures versus maybe like a traditional ultra running race. Is that true, or do you also like running traditional races?"
I mean, my friend just texted me and was like, "Hey, there's a Ragnar race, and it's in New Hampshire." And I did run across New Hampshire last year. It was beautiful, and um, I'm just like, "Well, how much?" And it was like 300. I was nah, and I think. I mean, yeah, of course you had to pay for Airbnbs and there were expenses to it, but I don't know. I think sometimes just like doing something that's unexplored or but yeah, maybe I will do more races. I did talk to one of my friends about like doing a 200-mile race, and yeah, I mean, I talked to her. I was like, why don't you just do it? Like, why would you do the race? Because it's self-supported too. So I think because I would like her to be the crew, like main crew for it, and she would prefer the support of having it as an official race. So yeah, I mean, I think I am more intrinsically motivated. So um and for ultras, you really can't compete against others, because the second you start thinking about someone else and stop focusing on your own fueling and nutrition, your pace and your position and your cadence, I it's almost like such a pure kind of thing as it is. So I don't know. Maybe I will. I won't rule anything out, but I don't, for many reasons, I think I'm drawn more to trying new things, but
I think with your adventures, I mean, there's obviously got to be so many memorable moments. You talked about the dolphins on your rowing adventure, and what was one of the most memorable moments about this trip for you?
um I mean, I think it was the people we met. And I mean, I do surround myself with a lot of runners and ultra runners, and um I think it was just really cool knowing that this was something that meant something to a lot of the cities and the smaller towns that we went through. And um yeah, just kind of meeting people that I wouldn't normally. And then definitely Cleveland. Like, I think there were probably 2 dozen runners that joined me, and that was just really encouraging. And I mean, knowing that some of these runners and were friends that I've had for years and never had run before and decided to do it, and then others were just people that found out about it on social media. Or so it was just cool to share that, because so many of my journeys sometimes end up being solo, that just being able to share a couple miles was really cool.
What was it like kind of coming into Cleveland, having those runners with you? You touched on it a little bit, but like, what were the miles like? What were the conversations like? And like, did they bring you snacks or anything special like that take place out there?
So I didn't do caffeine because I needed to be able to sleep, but on day 11, I did do caffeine. So, Red Bull did give me wings. I was actually like the fastest on the last day. Um, but yeah, I had like friends and family, and it was just very surreal. I think it was also pretty special because Edgewater Park is also where the North Coast 24-hour like the national championship is hosted, and that was where I did my first 100-mile run. So it's a 0.9-mile loop. So I was a little bit like so the actual trail is 326 miles, but I needed to do 341 miles to reach that 11th ultra marathon. So I ended up doing like 8 or 9 loops at Edgewater Park. But which I normally wouldn't be like jazzed about, but it was really cool just because it was like, oh yeah, I've done this before through the North Coast 24-hour challenge, and then also every lap, like more people were coming, and yeah, it was definitely encouraging to be able to share that moment.
Take us through the finish line. Obviously, you finally finish. You're probably on the beach at this point, running into the water, I would hope. What was that moment like for you?
I got in trouble. It only took me 60 seconds and I got in trouble. Like, I guess I should have known because I'm in the Coast Guard. I don't know. So my mascots, my 4 dolphins, Lori, the main crew, and Deb, another friend on crew, and we had the 4 dolphins, and we jump into Lake Erie, and I'm floating around, and I didn't realize the lifeguards were like blowing their whistle, but I guess we're not allowed to have inflatables in Lake Erie. So it was a short-lived uh, dip into the lake. But I mean, that was just, yeah, made it all the more fun just to know that, like, I mean, there was like one of the witnesses was like a police officer, and he was like, just let it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was a really cool place to end. Like, they have a really nice beach house now, and it's really built up at Edgewater Park from what it was like a decade ago. So,
Yeah, Cleveland, I think, has been spending a lot of money investing in downtown area and stuff. So,
yeah, yeah,
um,
it's pretty.
let's jump into like the purpose of this event. So we talked about the whole race, the whole 11 days, 11 ultras, an amazing feat there, but why did you do it?
So one of my like favorite sayings is, if you have a strong enough why, you could figure out how. And my why is water. And I was studying in Australia, and I was studying environmental science, and they had a drought. So all the major headlines were about their water shortage, and there was this fear about when would the water run out and if it would run out. And so that was already on the top of my mind, water, because I'm born and raised on the Great Lakes. And I mean, water for me was just something that, oh, it's always there, it'll never run out, it's infinite. And so I was taking a class, and one of my professors was like, oh yeah, the wars of the future, they'll be because of water, and in some countries they're already at war because of water. And I was just like, wait, what? We need air, we need food, we need water. Like, what do you mean this basic necessity we're going to be fighting over? It's just like equivalent to like people fighting over air, like, oh, you're breathing my air. Like, I just couldn't imagine something. And and we've always learned that you could go this many days without food, but and only this many days without water, and all of these things. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that so many people were without something. And I mean, it was enough to make my brain go crazy just thinking about, we have planes and we have phones and we have all this technology, and yet 1 billion people don't have water. And so I I was pretty defeated by it and shocked. But then there was hope in that there's charities that are tackling this massive problem. And I think running and doing these challenges is a, a parallel to the water crisis. It's this thing that seems impossible, but how do you do it one person? How do you do it 1 mile? You just kind of have to break it down. Um, and what is true is that it has improved, and they have seen improvements. And I mean, there's a million great causes to support. And what's great about water is it's not necessarily to support research. There's known solutions, and they're cost effective, they're cheap. And so, I mean, yeah, why not water is probably the best question, right?
So your charity that you support is H2O for Life. Kind of talk about
Yeah.
how you found them, why you partner with them, and kind of what sets them apart from others.
Yeah. So I really like H2O for Life because, I mean, most of the water crisis is happening outside of the United States. They do support water projects within the United States too, but the question that I've received a lot is like, well, what about here? Why aren't they helping here? And what H2O for Life does that's kind of different is that they provide resources so that kids, they primarily work with schools to help, so encourage schools to help schools in the developing world get clean water. So um, they, with their service learning opportunities, are basically equipping kids to be engaged global citizens, so that they have concern for others, they can develop empathy, they can learn things about just caring for others. And so they give them resources on how to do these fundraisers and how to learn more about the issue. And so I think I think a lot of times youth in the United States are starved for purpose and feeling like they're part of something bigger. And so that's kind of the need that I see them filling here in the United States. So they do have partners that do the actual building of the projects, but it's also really cool that I can go on their website, pick a project, see pictures, see on the GPS where it is, get all the information that gives me confidence in knowing that the work is being done and it's not just going somewhere and hoping it's going somewhere good. They can track and monitor the progress of the projects.
Yeah, that accountability part's awesome. I don't see that
Yeah.
in many nonprofits. You just don't see that accountability part being publicized as well.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, like, I am intending at some point to go around the world, mainly by bicycle. And yeah, I'd love to visit some of the projects on the way. So I know I personally am interested for that reason to visit some of those projects and learn more, and hopefully do more to raise funds for more projects in the future.
Before we move too far, I just want to go back to that last comment you made about biking around the world. I just want to make sure, our listeners didn't miss that. That was just like a very casual slip in there. Is there ways to connect, like to connect it, or
Oh,
how does that
okay.
work?
All right. So so I rode across the Atlantic Ocean from West Africa to South America. Most people go from island to island, or they might go from the US to UK. But I was very intentional because it was like, I want to go around the world by human power. And so I think the runner's mindset is kind of like, do the hardest thing first, because running is hard and we do hard things. So like yeah, I decided to do the row because I wanted to go around the world, and that was the hardest part. And that's why I did that route by the equator in that particular way. So that was, and the most expensive part about going around the world was the ocean. And so you can live on a bike for very $10 a day if you're just wild camping, or there's a website called Warm Showers or couch surfing, and I've done that kind of stuff before. So next year is when my 3-year term for this billet in the Coast Guard ends, and I'm planning on continuing from South America to North America to Alaska. So that would be 12,000 miles. which yeah, cycling's great cross training for the running, but that journey did begin with the row. I just haven't gotten around to the next leg, but that is something
Well, we're excited
in the
to,
future.
yeah, continue to see you kind of continue to go around the world here. One thing I'm kind of curious about is how did you decide that you're going to use your athletic ability to raise money in this way? You know, like a lot of people maybe don't know where to get started, or, you know, maybe they want to kind of jump in, but like, why did you choose to use your athletics?
Yeah, so I did my first marathon when I was 18 years old, and in my like I didn't know anyone who did these things, so I was like, oh, now I want to do an Ironman, but I need to learn how to ride a bike. So I mean I know how to ride a bike, but I mean like really ride a bike, and I haven't ridden a bike like that. It's mainly just putzing around as a kid and getting like commuting. So my logic was, okay, I want to do an event that is cycling now. And so that's when I stumbled across the big ride across America, and it was a 3,300-mile bike ride from Seattle to DC, and it was for the American Lung Association. And when I found out about that ride just through Google, I recently, my grandma had passed away, and she passed away from lung disease, and um, I was her first granddaughter, so she gave up smoking the day I was born to have more time. And I mean, yeah, I know that her commitment and her decision to give up an addiction is the reason why we had so many years together. And so I definitely, like, I saw that bike trip, and I had no idea how that would help with the American Lung Association. I had no idea about fundraising. I didn't, the concept was completely foreign. Like, I'm gonna ride my bike, and how is that gonna raise money exactly? Like, so that journey is what introduced me, and they gave some tools and resources on how to do the fundraising. And um, I was definitely the youngest. And so it was like, harder in certain ways because I didn't have this network of coworkers and all that. So, but it gave me a lot of knowledge that I didn't have about how to do that. So as soon as I knew that that was a possibility, it really was like, well, why not? Of course. And um, I mean, it is very effective. Like, I last winter, because I'm in the Coast Guard, sometimes they phase out of their charts and stuff, and so I was making coasters for a cause, and like making all these nautical coasters and selling them at craft fairs, and it raised like $1,000, and which is better than nothing. But I was just like, man, this running around in circles and this biking around in circles isn't bad when when you add it all up. And so the run across Ohio, the goal was to raise funds for 11 water projects, or 34,000, and right now the total's around 38. We increased it to 40,000 after reaching that 34. So I think it's just, yeah. And if anyone does want to donate, they're you know they're still able to donate on the charity's website. So um, I think it's awesome that you can do that. You can take anything that you're passionate about and use it in a way that can help other people.
We'll definitely put that link in the description below so people can find it if they're wanting to go donate. Um, give you a quick breather real quick and just remind everyone who's watching, if you like what we're doing here and you like this channel, just give us a subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. And then kind of back to a question you mentioned this in the beginning a little bit with your why, and even with in the bike race, the why is like very strong with you. Like you're able to like mentally push yourself through so much because you have this very strong like reason for it. Um, where where did that come from? Like that mental ability to push, and it's probably the reason why you can do so many of these amazing things, especially like being what the youngest person to row the Atlantic, if I'm not mistaken, right? And the first
Yes.
American.
The first American to row, yeah, solo from Africa to South America.
Yeah, like these are all incredible feats, and it's the mental attitude I think that is the real like hidden gem here, and like I'm very curious about that and how you got there.
I mean, I guess like maybe this goes to believing in like knowing and like I guess faith has become a bigger part on my journey and just kind of recognizing that we are all given like our unique talents and abilities and so um I would never say and no doctor would be like oh yes her body fat and her heart rate and everything is like a superhuman like I know that I fall in the realm of a normal nothing on term in terms of like if you wanted to do a VO2 max test and do all those like tests, it would fall in the normal. But I would say that um, some things that have been helpful for me is like, I know I have a high pain tolerance. I know that I can be optimistic. I know that I could be stubborn. And yeah, and sometimes that's not a good quality to have, but there's certain qualities that are good to have in doing these challenges. But um, I think all like qualities, just like working out muscles in your body, like I do think that certain traits can also be exercised and strengthened. So um, I don't know. I mean, I definitely was always trying to keep up with my brothers, and I have two older brothers. And so growing up with older boys and then all their friends, I think kind of I mean, I had fun trying to keep up, but like I think that was something that taught me how to like push myself harder, but I don't know. I don't know. I would just say God gives me what I have and I hope I can use it for something good. I don't know.
I think it's been pretty obvious, you've been using it for really great things. And, a lot of people are really, it's inspiring to so many people. So it's been awesome to see. So we're continuing to see you do bigger things as you continue to go here. It's kind of that point in the show where we're going to kick to our quicker questions. Regeneration Nation will know these ones well. We did modify them a little bit for this big adventure style here. So we'll dive into those. But if you guys have any final chat questions, drop those in now and we'll get to those before we get out of here. But the first quick question is, what's one food you kept going to when you saw your crew throughout the 11 days?
Watermelon.
It's a great choice.
Never enough watermelon.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing to eat when you're dehydrated.
I like some people are like, are you sick of watermelon since that's all you really ate? And I'm like, no. Can always eat more watermelon.
What's the favorite place you've ever run?
Where I haven't run yet.
Ever run? Or you have?
Where I have not run yet. I always aspire to run where I
okay.
haven't.
There you go.
Because there's a lot of places to run.
Totally misread that.
That's the best answer we might have ever had on this show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Makes me think.
So who are your inspirations in the running scene or adventure scene or just people you look up to?
I mean, everyone says Courtney. Like she's a boss. Go Courtney. Courtney Walter. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's Walter, something like that. I don't know.
Walter.
She's a beast. Everyone just knows Courtney.
Yeah, it's just Courtney.
Courtney.
Yeah.
You can get this one, Wesley. It's one of your favorites.
Okay, yeah. We talked about this earlier. It's a little prelude. Regeneration got excited in the chat for a second when you talked about like, your music choices throughout this. We have a Spotify playlist that all of our guests get added to a song. If ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would yours be? Or what was one song you kept going to throughout the 11 days?
Well, this was more for running across Maine, but I only listened to one song, and it was called "Run, Run, Run," and I still like it. I don't know who. Oh, Jungle Jungle, Kyle Pierce. Run, Run, Run. Listen to it. It's good.
To check that out. How many times did you listen to it? Do you know?
I don't know. 50?
That's a, oh, 50's not bad.
That's not that bad. I'm thinking about
Running across the bay, that's awesome. Eric Anderson's actually in the chat. He said, what is the best main trail to hit on vacation or for a run?
I mean, I love Old Orchard Beach. It's just 7 miles of beach. You could go barefoot, and there's pizza and fries afterwards. So I go for the beach. I mean, they do have, like, if you want city, there's always like Back Cove, and that's, you can see like the lighthouses from there. But I'm always gravitating towards the beach, and so yeah.
I know Eric appreciates the beach scene much like I do, so he'll love that answer. John, I think you got the next question here.
Yeah, this one's one of our favorites too, as well. It says, if you could run with one person in the history of the world, even if they aren't a runner, and assuming they would be able to keep your pace, who would it be?
Jesus. I had a talk with my friend about this. Like, because when you're a Christian, you're supposed to be more like Jesus, and we had to talk about it, and it was like, well, would Jesus be competitive running? And they're like, no. But so I don't know. I would like to see what that's like for Jesus to be running.
I feel like he would do solo runs.
That'd be awesome.
Right?
One final one here. Do you have any sponsors or anyone you want to say thank you to before we get out of here?
Yeah. So Newton Running supported me on the run. Tailwind, and then Sawyer Products. They funded the film, and it's going to be called Running Home. So hopefully it'll be available at different film festivals in Ohio and maybe beyond.
Do you know the timeline estimate for that?
So we're looking to submit for the August deadline for some of these. So yeah, it probably wouldn't be for another 3 to 6 months until it's actually in things. So, but hopefully it'll be worth the wait.
We'll make sure to tag Regeneration Nation in it so they can go back and watch the film when it finally is released. So
cool. Sounds good.
I think that's about it for this so far. It's all the questions. I don't think there's any other chat questions to go through. One more from Eric Anderson just says, in the past you used to use almost all liquid nutrition. Is that still the case?
It is. So I use Tailwind pretty much, and like that's it. And then I did notice that it was really hard to eat solids again. Like my stomach was so tiny from just drinking and not eating any food. So I started incorporating more bananas and watermelon just so my stomach had something to do and didn't feel like, hey, what's all this food doing in here? We don't know what to do with it. So I find the liquid only it works for me, and it worked really well for Ohio. So I probably will stick with it for future stuff.
Well, we want to say a big thank you for joining us tonight. You've been a great guest. It's been awesome to hear about everything that you're doing, the race, all of the fundraising involved with the race, and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, we'll put all those links down below in the description for this, and then once the film comes out, we'll also drop it in the description so that it's there if anyone stumbles upon this in the future.
Cool.
Everyone in Ridgewinder Nation, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being in the chat and active. I think that's about it. Got anything else, Wesley?
No, I think that's it. We'll see everyone on the next one.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.